Hey, what is going on everyone? It's me, Mr. Mario, and in this video here, we're going to be doing a review of a game changer for the Switch. Quite literally a game changer for the Switch. I mean that in the most literal sense here. And for anybody who does not know, I ended up reviewing one of these last year, but this one has a few more bells and whistles that we're going to be checking out here. Now, to be transparent with you all, this is the Unitek Switch Game Card Reader or Quick Switching Adapter for the Nintendo Switch. And this was sent to me for review for free from Unitek, so I could check it out, review it, give my thoughts on it, and show it to you all here on the channel. However, I want to be clear that this is not a sponsored video. I have not been paid for this here, and any opinions expressed in here are my own. However, if you are interested in picking up one of these after watching this, I will have an affiliate link down below in the description. Now, when I got one of these before, it ended up being a perfect middle ground for what I was looking for. I'm personally still a physical collector, and I like to physically pick up my games. I also primarily play those physical games in a stock Switch. However, there were several physical titles that I knew I would be consistently switching out, and I didn't want to constantly do that, so this ended up being incredibly convenient where I was able to load this up with 8 choice games and have fun with it. But the older versions of this device that were on the market ended up having a few shortcomings which several people complained about in my last video, and it seems like this model here from Unitek ends up answering them. First of all, you can see that it has 8 ports much like previous iterations. However, this one here has all 8 of those ports activated, meaning that all 8 are available and you can put in 8 games and switch between them, while as the previous one I reviewed only had the top row of 4 games that you could switch between and the bottom row only served as storage. So essentially what I would do was I had a top row of games that I would play online and a bottom row of games that I would play offline if people came over. So depending on the situation, if I was playing online, I was able to have my online games in the top row, and if we were having a game night with people over, I end up moving the bottom row games to the top row. And now with this upgraded version which has all 8 cartridge slots activated, that means that I don't have to switch them out as often, which is quite convenient. Another complaint was a lot of people liked the idea behind this, but they hated the fact that they had to get up and physically press a button to switch out the games. Now this personally did not bug me. However, looking at the unboxing here, once we look at the packaging, we end up seeing the device itself, which seems to be pretty sturdy, seems to work pretty well, and seems to be a little heavier than the previous one, which would make sense. It also comes with a 3-foot USB Type-A to Type-C cable, and it also has this remote control here, which is circular, only one button, and I'll be honest here, when I ended up getting it, I saw that it was meant to be opened, so I quite literally cracked it open as soon as I got it, because I was really curious to see how this thing was supplied power, because I couldn't find any port on there, and I couldn't find a way to insert a battery. And lo and behold, you get one of these types of batteries right here. So whenever the battery inside of here dies, you can crack it open pretty easily, swap out the battery with another CR2032 or something similar, close it back up, and you're good to continue on. I will say from my own real world usage, it is a nice remote. It is simple, it is circular, it's light, it's easy, it gets the job done. There's only one button on here. The only warning I'm going to give you is that this thing kind of feels a little bit like a fidget toy, so I wouldn't recommend just holding onto it as you're playing games, because you might just start pressing buttons and then you're accidentally going to close out of your game, which you don't want to do mid-game. It also advertises a range of up to 23 feet or 7 meters away for anyone across the pond. I personally have this set up in my game room and I'm about 7 or 8 feet away from my TV. However, I was able to sit on the couch and swap games using the remote with no issue. I have no complaints on this. So at this point now, once you load up your 8 choice games, you don't even have to get off the couch. So now that all 8 ports have been activated and there is a remote, so you no longer have to physically get up and press the button on here, it seems like the 2 biggest complaints I saw in my previous review have been addressed. So once those complaints are out of the way, how does this device work? Well, you can see here, much like the other ones on the market, this one is geared much more towards the original core unit Switch dock, the original black one right here that I'm showing. Aesthetically, it just seems to work incredibly well. It looks nice, it fits well. You hook it on the back here, you load up your games, you end up connecting it from USB-C to USB-A, and you can plug it on the side of the dock, and boom, you're ready to go. Now, this also does work on the Switch OLED and the Switch OLED dock with no issue. However, I'll show you all right here that if you look at this with the OLED dock, it just doesn't look as aesthetically pleasing. That's at least my opinion, that's how it looks to me. It does not impact functionality at all, but you can tell here that the aesthetics were tuned in mind for the original Switch dock. As I've been demonstrating this on video, I'm really only doing this setup for demonstration purposes, and I would not recommend anybody play like this, not because of anything damaging, but just because practically it doesn't really make sense. However, if you did want to use this portably like I'm doing so right here, you could just use a USB-C to USB-C cable, or you could do what I'm doing and use a USB-A to USB-C cable, and then use a USB Type-A to USB-C adapter to use your Switch itself to power it. And once you have it powered and connected to your Switch's game card port, it seems to work pretty well. Just like the previous one, it loads in your games. You can press the button on the device or on the remote itself, and it takes about 2 seconds to switch out each game. And I do want to give a heads up right here, just like playing with an actual cartridge in your system, you will want to close out of your game once you're done and then switch out of the cartridge. Do not do what I'm doing. I'm only doing this here for demonstration purposes, but if you end up pressing the button on the remote or on the device itself, it will force close out of the game because it is simulating that you've removed the cartridge itself, and you just don't want to do that. Now, before I give my final verdict, I also do want to hopefully answer this question because many people in my previous review had this question. They asked, if I got multiple ones of these, could I hook them all up together? Because in theory, if you end up getting 9 of these, you had one of them as a primary game switcher, and you had 8 more that you connected up to the main one and filled them all up. As opposed to switching between 8 games, you could theoretically switch between 64 games. Now, I did end up trying this because I have 2 of them, so I was able to give it a shot. And I have to report here that unfortunately, from my own experiences, it does not work like that. What would happen is the primary one was working just fine, but on the secondary one, I'd be able to load up the first cartridge. But as soon as I tried to change cartridges on the secondary one, essentially it would stop getting power, and then the primary one would just move over to the second slot. I even tried to swap these out, thinking that maybe if I swapped them, it might be successful, but the exact same thing happened. So you're seeing it right here. Unfortunately, I tried it out. I hope that dispels that, but from my own experiences, I was not able to hook up multiple ones of these successfully together. So you're just going to have to stick to 8 cartridges. Really, the only way I see of getting more cartridges loaded into this device is if the device itself gets another update, which will allow for 12 slots, 14 slots, 20 slots, whatever it is, but that would have to be a new iteration of the device itself. At the end of this, all in all, what do I think about it? Well, just like the previous one, I will say this has been one of the easiest reviews I've ever made. The device is easy enough to use, it's incredibly simple to set up, and it does exactly what is needed on here. I personally didn't have any issues with the previous one. However, like I said, the main 2 complaints I saw were that not all 8 ports were activated and that you had to get up every single time to physically press the button on the device itself. And both of those issues have now been resolved with this latest iteration from Unitek. So I will say this in closing, if you're seeing this, if you see value out of it, and if this is something that is worth getting for your own setup, I can definitely recommend it. I think this is a fantastic device. It's one of my favorite Switch accessories. My previous one I've been using for over a year with no issues, and this one is just going to replace that one. And now with my old one, I'm actually going to be moving that upstairs because that is primarily where I use my workout games on my Switch. And I only have 2 cartridges there, so I'm now able to just load them up. I don't have to mess around with cases. I don't have to worry about any of that other stuff. Anyways, that is about it for this video here. I do want to give another shout out and thank you to Unitek for sending this device over for free for the purposes of review. I've enjoyed it, and if you think you would enjoy this, there is going to be a link down below in the description in which you can purchase it. Now, as I always say, this is Mr. Mario signing off. Thank you all for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, a like would absolutely be appreciated, and if you didn't like it, a dislike is fine as well too.